You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike.
Welcome into the Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan. I am here with Mr. Brett Newcomb and intern Michael.
Hello, hello.
Good morning.
How are you, gentlemen?
Exquisite.
Yeah, my daughter's dog is staying with me for a couple of days, and he made some noises from the other room, to which I said, "Be quiet, dog," and you guys said, "That sounded like an old man in the other."
Really
didn't sound like a dog, yeah.
How do you train that dog to make those noises?
Yeah, well, I don't know. He doesn't live with me anymore, but yeah, that was funny. So I think that there is at least, okay, let me ask a different question. Brett, you are, and without meaning any negative connotation, you're the oldest person in the room, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the reason that I say
Both
that is
experientially and cosmically.
Yes, is because you were a teacher.
Oh, it's because I was born earlier.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also were a therapist forever. You actually taught me, and even though I feel like I've done therapy for a long time, you've done it even longer than that. And so what I would ask is, it feels to me like this idea of mindfulness, this idea of self-love, this idea of aware of all of these kinds of new age,
Right.
Kinds of concepts that are being baked into psychology feels newer to me, but I also recognize things are cyclic. And so what goes around comes around. So what I would ask you is, are you aware of a time in psychology where these concepts were being promoted more than in my experience? Or do you feel like these things are newer age?
They weren't being framed this way. They weren't being this phraseology was not being used. These are marketing strategies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my argument is frequently made that every so often you have to change what you call it, so that you can charge more money for it.
Right.
Because the insurance companies are in this constant chess game to reduce your payments. So the DSM has to be revised.
I also think, though, that people want to continue to propose new theories, and so you have to repackage things to be able to make it fresh so that you can sell it as a new idea.
Yeah, but they're also, I mean, when you sent this article for us to talk about, my first reaction is, psychology today is becoming like Brides Magazine.
Yeah.
These articles, this article, you read this article.
You just won't let that Brides thing go.
Well, you sent me the article. That's
Okay.
all I can say.
All right.
It's just fluff.
Yeah.
It's pablum. It's verbiage. And so I was going to say, well, I'm going to throw a fit and we're not going to do this conversation. And then I thought, there is a legitimate conversation to be had around the idea of doing therapy with people and trying to facilitate their ability to be more self-honest, self-accepting, self-actualized, another term from the past. You don't have to call it self-love.
But
that's why I agreed I would have the conversation.
But that's exactly, though,
the point you're trying to make.
Is that I think that these things aren't new. I think that they have been in psychology before. I think self-actualization, which was a Maslowian idea, is exactly this same thing. It was just phrased differently.
We come back to basics.
Yeah.
My basic concept of doing therapy is that I have to have excellent attending skills. I have to be able to do reflective listening accurately and empathically, and I have to create a safe holding environment. If I can do those three things and you spend enough time with me, I will learn who you are, what's going on with you, to the point that I can then facilitate your exploration of issues that are causing you pain, behaviors that are causing you difficulty. And I can throw all kinds of words and theories and terminology and labeling and all that into the mix, but the reality is, if I do that, I believe I can help you improve your quality of life and reduce your level of frustration and pain.
So by doing so, if you're improving that individual's quality of life, how is that happening? Do you believe that they are internalizing some of the skills that you are demonstrating in that therapy session? Yeah.
I hope so, because that's the microcosm of the universe. When the two of us are here, when all the theories say whatever they're struggling with in life, they're going to project onto you, and you're having a chance to react to it differently and cause them to have to go, what? Because how many times have you had clients that would come in and say, "Well, are you going to give me homework?" Mm-hmm. I said, "Well, do you need homework?" "Yeah, I need homework." "Okay, I'll give you homework, but you won't do it." And then you come in next week and say, "You're going to be really mad at me." I mean, why am I going to be mad at you? "Well, I didn't do the homework." That's all BS.
And why do they even ask if you're going to give them homework?
Because they've been taught to expect that. And they want to feel like they have quality for cost. Mm-hmm. "Oh, you gave me something to do."
Right.
Even if I'm not going to do it.
Right. And for anybody who is very, very structurally a cognitive behavioralist and you really believe in homework, we're not saying homework assignments aren't beneficial. What we are saying is that homework assignments should never be given because to hold the client responsible for doing the homework. It's always about, if you give the client this assignment, yes, if you do it, we can talk about what the effect was. But if you don't do it, there's just as much information to be gleaned in therapy from a client who doesn't do their homework as a client who does do their homework.
So years and years ago, before you were born, there was an argument about the differential between counseling and therapy. And the argument was made that counselors provide behavioral interventions, like I can help you stop having panic attacks, or I can help you quit smoking, or I can help you lose weight. We use this cognitive behavioral stuff, teach you new language, teach you new habits. And therapy was about personality change, self-structure change. I don't know that I could make a distinction or have a horse in that race. I believe fundamentally, if you come to me and I pay attention to you and I see you accurately and empathically, and reflect that back to you, that we can dance a dance that offers you an opportunity for growth and change. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I believe it's beneficial on average. It don't help everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. But if you give me that opportunity, I believe I can help you.
And that really is about what we would call reparenting.
Which is the dance of therapy.
Which is the dance of therapy.
Safe holding environment.
And we were recently in a show.
But you reparent yourself. I don't parent you. I don't say,
okay, and that's the point I wanted to get to. That's the point I wanted to get to is right, who's doing the parenting? And yes, the client's reparenting themselves by internalizing some of the things that are being presented, especially in emotional regulation.
Is it getting in your way? Yeah. Is it fair? Is it unfair? Is it sad? Is it happy? Okay, reality is. Let's deal with reality. But what options do you have?
In an episode recently, we were talking about personality, and I was saying that at my stage now, almost 60 years old, whereas I felt like that personality was immutable, I kind of feel like now you do have some advocacy or
I think nothing is immutable.
Yeah.
Death and taxes.
I know. But it's through that reparenting that you have the ability to be able to maybe make some changes.
So we have the younger, smarter element here. Let's ask, what do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting.
I see you twitching. I just like to know what you're saying.
It's interesting that you bring up the idea of self-love and self-care in the Zeitgeist. I think you're absolutely right. I think about shows like Queer Eye, right? Very popular on Netflix. Jonathan Van Ness comes out, one of the cast members of Queer Eye, comes out with this book called Over the Top, which is all about his own self-love, his own self-reflection. And he really dives into Richard Schwartz's parts theory, right? And he really starts to talk about that. And it's really starting to dissect one's own personality and finding the aspects of one's personality that serves one, right? So we talk about if you repress a part, that part can act out in a different way. If I repress the depression in me, that part eventually will either take over the driver's seat because it hasn't gotten the attention, or act out in another way.
I have a number of friends who are family systems trained and believe, and the work, and I've seen it work. I mean, it's beautiful work. It can really, it's another way to speak. It's another language. But I love to jack around with them because I'll say part of me really resists what you're saying.
Yeah.
And they just roll their eyes.
And
part of them wants to slap me when that happens.
Again, I we've talked about this, that is anything new or is everything always repackaged? You and I being more psychodynamically focused, neither one of us really use that language of parts theory. That doesn't mean that it isn't real or isn't relevant.
It's just such an echo of all that I learned about working with multiple personalities.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it isn't in a fight with. It's just an echo of how I learned to understand it. But I don't know that it matters at the end of the day. I have to hear you accurately and reflect to you what I'm hearing. Not judgmentally, but accurately, so that it resonates with you. I mean, he sees me, he understands me, he accepts me. Then I can challenge you, can you accept yourself?
Right.
The whole thing about guilt. I don't accept myself because I'm so guilty. I'm carrying this burden of angst and regret and so on. And we have to find a way to say, what is that in service of? How is that impacting your survival and your progress?
Yeah.
Could you let it go? And what would it take for you to be able to let it go? What would it be worth? I believe that all behaviors cost and pay. All choices cost and pay. We have to do the emotional economics. Can we give you new coin of the realm to play with? That's the challenge of the dance.
Well,
come dance with me.
The only thing that I can, or there is something that I am very aware of as we're having this conversation that just recently happened, and there's no reason for people to know this. You guys know this. My daughter just graduated from medical school, and we had graduation last weekend, and while we were at graduation, my daughter said to me, I just want to tell you that when we were little, you were a really big advocate of we have to love ourselves, and that has to be the focus of our lives, because on my email there's a Latin phrase that is nemo dat quod non habet, which means you can't give away something that you don't have. And I always told my kids, you can't really love somebody else if you don't love yourself. You can't really trust somebody else if you don't trust yourself. And I've always believed that that is a foundational psychological principle. And she said, I just have to thank you for ingraining that in us, because it was not something that was looked on favorably in my family. I remember my daughter said when she was still in a pumpkin seat in the back of my mom's car, Grandma, do you love yourself? And my mom said, well, I don't know, probably not. And my daughter just went off on, oh, well, I want you to love yourself. And because my dad says that you got to love yourself and you can't, and I just want you to be happy, Grandma. And my mom came over that day and confronted me and said, what are you teaching your kids? You're messing your kids up and all this stuff. And because that wasn't something that was promoted in my family. The idea of self-love was not something that was okay.
Well, shame is a very powerful language to speak. It's also a very easy language to speak. And I think Brene Brown has a quote out that shame derives its power from being unspeakable. And so if we revel in that shame and we exist in that shame, we will never truly love ourselves. So I'm a member of the queer community, and it's really prevalent. Jonathan Van Ness is also in the queer community. There's another person, RuPaul, very famous for being a drag queen, and ends every episode by saying, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love anybody else?
Right.
And it's interesting to me.
I think you got that from me.
I might have, yeah.
No, I think RuPaul
might have gotten that from you. Possibly. But I really do think it's interesting that has come out of a community where shame tends to be a driving motivator, a driving factor in a lot of people's lives. There's another book called The Velvet Rage, whose author I can't remember at this moment. But all about shame, right? It does shame research and says these are the stages that a queer man goes through as he grows into life, and it's focused on shame.
Back in the 90s, there was an author, Leo Buscaglia, the Doctor of Love.
Love Doctor. He was
on.
He was huge on Hugh Donahue back when Hugh Donahue was still on. Yeah.
I think he was replaced by Dr. Ruth, but I think they had a different focus.
Well, Dan Savage has his podcast, right? Savage Love. It's about self-love, ultimately. And it's interesting to me that these ideas of self-love really find pillars in the queer community and in other marginalized communities. And then people who tend to
pillars can be anchors.
Yes.
They can help stabilize you and ground you if you can buy the same thing that religion can do for people.
Yes.
Can anchor you in times of turmoil. I've often said that clients who have a religious anchor to hold on have something additional to fight with in times of trouble and crisis than clients that don't have that.
But you've also said that can both be a benefit but also a liability. That religion can give you the illusion of having some sense of certainty. And maybe I'm
Well, no, I think the caution that I would offer is the things that I say personally in my personal life are different than the things that I say counseling. My job is not to proselytize my beliefs about religion and faith. My job is to take what you believe and help understand how it anchors you or how it gets in your way. And then offer to you new ways to think about that, not as a conviction of my premise, but as a growth within you that gives you more freedom and less pain.
So if religion causes a blockage for growth, then it's not a positive.
Well, and what I kind of heard you picking at there is the idea that while religion can anchor you, say somebody comes, that can also come with a risk of an existential crisis in and of itself, if they start to question or doubt their own religion, right?
Well,
with that gain comes another risk. But to my answer is, what doesn't come with other risk, right?
Right.
That doesn't exist.
Okay, let's run to our break and we'll pick this up on the other side. Hey guys, Dr. Michael Mahan here from Psych with Mike. And do you think that you have a story to tell? I know that when we started Psych with Mike, the things that we really wanted in a podcast hosting company was that they knew what they were doing. And Libsyn has been around since the very beginning. They're the oldest running consecutive, still existing podcast hosting company in the entire world, I think, but certainly in the United States. So they've been around since people started uploading things to the internet. And so they have a lot of experience. But we also needed a service that was easy to use, and Libsyn is just so intuitive. And even though they've got all of this experience, they just keep on upgrading. So they just recently went through a major renovation, a major upgrade to Libsyn 5, and made the service even more intuitive and user-friendly than it was before. And it was so user-friendly before that I was able to figure it out and get Psych with Mike up on the service. So we've been using Libsyn since the very beginning of Psych with Mike for over 2 years now. We love them. And as a friend of the show, if you go to Libsyn and start a podcast right now, you get your first month free. So you go to Libsyn.com and use the code FRIEND, so friend of the show, friend. That's LIBSYN.com and use the code FRIEND and you get your first month free. And as always, if it's Friday, it's cyclic. Okay, we're back. And the one part of the article that I actually liked was there's a section where the author is talking about, you know, you can kind of monitor your own sense of self-love by, are you quicker to self-criticize or are you quicker to self-praise? And I think that that's a really important concept.
So I think a lot of that is driven by the scripts that you internalize as a child, the parenting scripts that your parents used. Who in the hell do you think you are? Messaging that you internalize. Well, who do I think I am? What makes me better? What makes me different? I have to be this way. Shame, power, control, pain are levers that many people parent with.
There's a line in a song that I like where this guy's talking about his experience in Catholic school, and he says that he got his knuckles bruised by a nun dressed in black who told him that fear is the heart of love, so he never went back. And I think that that is so true. That's my daughter's dog. Is so true in a lot of our experiences, that people taught us that fear is the heart of love, and it's not. It's not when we love other people, and it's not when we love ourselves.
My father specifically said to me, I don't care if you love me, but you will fear me.
Yeah.
There's a great Michael Scott quote from The Office. It's, would you prefer to be feared or loved? And he says, is it too much to ask for both? I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. And I said, yeah, that sounds great.
Oh, afraid of how much.
Nice twist, yeah.
That's a nice. Yeah, I didn't think that's where that was going in the beginning. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to pose a question, because if you look awe up in the dictionary, the definition of awe is majesty with a sense of fear. I mean, that's the definition. So is
sinners in the hand
fear,
of an angry God?
Well, but is fear required as a part of love?
Reverence and respect
are different.
Are different.
Okay.
I think they are different. And I think reverent, in religion in particular, at least how I have understood Christian religion as I've grown up, is that God has two parts to him, right? Grace and mercy, whereas grace is receiving something you don't deserve, and mercy is not receiving something you did, right? And so I think love can exist without. I agree. Love can't exist without fear in some sense, because if you aren't afraid of either losing it or what can come as a result of this vulnerability, that you're entering into with someone else, does it have any vulnerability at all to it?
So the Buddha said that the heart of all despair is attachment, and so the Buddhist concept is love without attachment, and so there is no fear of losing that, and that, Buddha said that the greatest love is love that doesn't have that fear of loss associated with it.
The heart of transcendentalism.
Yeah. And so I will be honest, I believe that human beings are ingrained at the level of our DNA to be in committed relationships. So to me, the idea of love without attachment is something that I feel is alien to being human. But that, that caveat put out there, we do have a concept in our world of love without fear. And is that a superior form of love? Should we even have fear associated with love?
I think it's I don't know. I'm not clear on what I want to say. I think the idea of humanity is that we try to hold on to things, to anchor ourselves to things and people, to be safe. That's why we stay in one place instead of roam the world, most of us. The idea that you're articulating about the love without fear is a greater love, a larger love, a more encompassing love. And as the Buddha is suggesting, transcendentalism is suggesting, if we can detach ourselves from these fears and these inhibiting anchors, then we can be more expansive and we can see a larger part of the universe. I don't know if that's doable or not.
Yeah,
I think that's my understanding of the discussion.
And this is something that I've really thought about a lot. In the Greek language, there are 6 or 7 words for love, depending on which reference source you look at, and we don't have that broad kind of love language in our society, and I think that we're missing something because of that. I think that we should be more focused on that. But let's go back clinically to this idea of, are you quicker to self-criticize or are you quicker to self-praise? If you look at yourself and you answer that question in the negative, I am much more quick to self-criticize. That's actually something that we can help you with in therapy. We can help you learn compensatory measures where you can practice trying to be more self-praising. And in the beginning, that's going to be really hard to do.
So one of the ways you approach that clinically, I use a specific example. I was talking to somebody the other day who was telling me that they get in depressive cycles, and they stand at the front door and they want to go outside. They know they need to go out and walk and want to be in the sun, but they just can't go out. They just can't go out. And I suggested to them that words matter, and the language you hear in your head structures reality. And so you have to learn to recognize that voice that says can't and change it to will or won't. So should, shouldn't, can, can't. Get rid of those and make affirmative choices. But it's not one trial learning. You can't do it today and say, I will go outside and go outside. But you have to change the script that you've internalized from childhood. That gives you an opportunity to be more free,
right,
and less bound to your depression.
And while that isn't one trial learning, I do think that that is fodder then for the therapy session. So you can say, I will go outside today, and go outside. And then the next time you come back and see me, we can talk about, how was that? You didn't die. Was it enjoyable?
And then you can get to a place where you can say, I will stop therapy.
well,
I think
some people do, yes.
I think there's a lot of reaffirmation in that language as
Yes.
well. I've heard the same example with vegetarianism. People are really wanting to become vegetarians, and they say, instead of saying, "Oh, I can't eat meat," they say,
Or I shouldn't eat meat.
I don't eat meat.
Exactly.
And so every time they tell their friends, "I don't eat meat," it's a
I'm not smoking today.
Yeah, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
No, I think that
Words matter.
the words absolutely matter, and that's why I feel like it's super, super important to work with people who are overly self-critical, to try and, even if it isn't change that to self-praise, at least start by modifying the self-critical language. Because it can make a huge difference, just like you're saying. The difference between I don't eat meat and I won't eat meat is only one letter, but it makes a huge difference in the way that you perceive it in yourself.
Well, it brings us back to the New Age word of empowerment.
Yeah.
You accept your power to act. You're not trapped, you're not stuck, you're not limited, you're not bound by these strictures. You have the power to choose.
We just did a whole episode on personality. I think one becomes a behavior you are exhibiting, and the other is a choice in your personality trait.
Yeah. And
Choice among personality traits, yes.
I'm really... So I am very aware that there's, and it's always this way, but there's a real sense in our society that we have so many more opportunities. We have so many more people encouraging people to be empowered, to express their, to be, body, what's it called when body, happy, when you're happy in your own body, body positive, and so we reject the old kinds of media driven ideas of what is attractive and just be body positive. And so we have these messages, and then on the other hand,
still sell Barbie dolls to little girls.
I've heard from clients that they feel like it's harder today to be able to feel loved because the ideas that they see on social media of people promoting their lives is so incredibly difficult to live up to. And I tell people all the time that what you see on social media is a lie. I mean, nobody's living that life.
Maybe you should tell them turn off social media.
Well, I think that's the problem, is that they are living that life now. Previously, when we look at advertisements or Hollywood, that is separate and that is removed from your pocket. But now I think we have children and teens in particular have social media, and they build lives that portray this image.
They build
want to portray.
False identities.
Yes.
It's not real.
And that becomes their entire existence. Yeah. That's not a job for them. That is them now.
I don't know. I disagree because
influencers, you mean?
Yes.
Because they're promoting that, and that may be their social persona online, but they're still, so I see these depictions every year, the social media of, people at Thanksgiving, and everybody's having a great time and they're cutting the turkey and everybody's happy and laughing. But I know at that table, there's a lot of dissension. People are arguing with each other, and somebody left and, was angry, and somebody else drank too much.
Norman Rockwell painting?
No. Huh. But I think but I wonder if there are more opportunities to be yourself today, but that some of the straitjackets that we live in are just as real today as they were in the 1960s. Right.
Yeah. But you could live in a 50 Cent video today instead of a Norman Rockwell painting.
Sure. And so I guess it's pick your poison.
Off there,
but in the end,
that hurt.
But in the end, you do have some agency to be able to change the language that you use to be able to think about yourself. To me, the language, the self-talk is more important than the social media projection. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yes.
And so what I would be saying to individuals is it's more important how you conceptualize yourself than whether or not you get 10 million likes on your Facebook feed.
Well, fame is so microscopic now that it truly is fickle. And Brene Brown talks about this idea of scarcity in life and a focus on scarcity, which eventually she argues leads to a focus in scarcity of oneself. And we talk about the generation between the boomers and the Gen Xers really had to keep up with the Johnsons, right? Or keeping up with the Joneses. That was a whole big thing then. And I think in some ways is now too, but just in a much more microscopic way. I get on my social media and I feel as though I can never keep up with all of the things that I should do. I should be an interior designer and a photographer and a musician
you can have it all.
You can't have it all.
Yeah.
So I wonder how and when I'm grateful for some of the self-love talk, but I hear your point around there is now a societal pressure to say you have to love yourself, and if you don't, well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, like that's the normal. The normal state would be to love yourself, when I'm not sure that that's ever been the normal state, but it is a state that we should aspire to.
We would like to aspire to.
Yes, language matters. All right, hopefully that is beneficial for people. As always, the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. If you want to do something nice for us, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and give us a comment and a review, a rating. But if you really, really want to be kind, go to the YouTubes, find us on YouTube, and subscribe to the show. That's super, super beneficial. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.